So welcome back to the channel guys and another chess video. Today in this video I'm going to show you one of my game in which I delivered checkmate despite being down a piece, and in this game which I just played a few minutes ago features the Nimzo Larsen attack. And in this game I was playing with the black pieces. My opponent starts with b3, which is the Nimzo Larsen attack, and the main idea behind b3 is that white first fianchettos his queen's bishop and then tries to control the center with his pieces and later attacks the center with the pawns to undermine the center. Now anyways, I played knight to c6. Here comes bishop to b2 as expected. Now I played e5. My opponent plays e3. Here comes bishop to c5. Now my opponent plays bishop to b5. I played d6, and in this position, up to this position, everything was fine. But my opponent played c3. Now I played knight to e7, which I think was not a really good move. A better move was bishop to d7. Now all problems are coming after me after d4. I took the pawn and my opponent takes back, of course. And the problem is that if I move my bishop anywhere, my opponent will quickly play d5 and win my knight. And my bishop is also under attack. So I counter attacked my opponent's bishop with a6. He took my knight by playing bishop takes on c6 check. And the thing is that bishop takes on c6 comes with a check. So I will have to address that first, because check is the most forced move in chess. So I took his bishop by playing b takes on c6 and I lost my bishop. My opponent just played d takes on c5, and as of move 9 I lost my bishop. My opponent had an extra piece, and even though my opponent had an extra piece, the game will be over in the next 19 moves because of me checkmating my opponent with 2 rooks on the 7th rank. Anyways, game continued. I just castled kingside. Opponent plays knight to e2, preparing for the same thing. I played bishop to b7, and my opponent was really smart. She knew that if he takes my d6 pawn, then first of all it will solve my doubled pawn weakness, and my bishop will also get a chance to get back in the game. So my opponent castles kingside. Now I played rook to b8. My opponent plays f3, and I took the pawn on c5 by playing d takes on c5, which I think was not a good move, because now I had tripled pawns on the c file. Tripled pawns, just like the doubled pawns, are weaknesses because they can easily be targeted, and you cannot use pawns to support them because there are no pawns in their adjacent files, and you have to support them with pieces which can be really annoying and they can be easily taken. So that's what happened in the game. Now we had a queen trade, and now my opponent played knight to a3. Now I played c4, sacrificing my useless pawn to get some counter play for my bishop, because my bishop is really garbage in this position. Anyways, my opponent took the pawn with the knight. Here comes c5. Bishop to a3 is on the board and targeting the pawn as expected. I played rook to d3. My opponent plays h3. Now I played knight to d5. My opponent plays knight to e5, attacking my rook. Rook moves to e3, forking both the knights. My opponent counter attacks by playing knight to d7. If I will take my opponent's knight, my opponent will take my rook too, and my rook is undefended too. So I moved my rook to d8, attacking the knight. Knight grabs the c5 pawn by playing knight takes on c5. I grabbed my opponent's knight by playing rook takes on e2. Opponent grabs the bishop by playing knight takes on b7. I played rook d2 e8, doubling up the rooks on the e file. Opponent plays rook a to d1, attacking my knight. I grabbed the c3 pawn by playing knight takes on c3. Rook moves to c1. Instead of grabbing the a2 pawn, moved my knight to b5, also defending the c7 pawn and also attacking my opponent's bishop. And many of you would ask, why didn't I took the a2 pawn? Well, had I took the a2 pawn, then my opponent would have replied with a capture of the c7 pawn, which would be really dangerous and annoying, as the rook will penetrate to my 7th rank and I will have some back rank issues and more problems. So I just defended peacefully with knight to b5. My opponent now plays bishop to b4. Now I took the a2 pawn by playing rook takes on a2. This solves one of my problem. Now my knight is planted on the b5 square and cannot be easily threatened by the pawn. And before this move, there was a pawn on a2 that could have easily attacked my knight via a4, and I would have to move my knight. So I took the pawn by playing rook takes on a2. Here comes knight to bishop to c3. I played rook e to e2. Now both my rooks were on 7th rank and I was giving a checkmate trade. My opponent plays king to h2, which is a big blunder, and now it's a mate in 2. I first played rook takes on g2 check. King to h1 is the only legal move. Now comes rook to h2 check. King to g1 is the only legal move, and now I finished it off with rook a to g2 checkmate. So this type of checkmate, in which rooks on the 7th rank or 2nd rank for white deliver the checkmate, is called a blind sawing checkmate. So in this game I delivered checkmate despite being down a piece. So hope you all enjoyed this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, then please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also share this video with your family and friends so that they can also watch my videos. So thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next video.